Hey fandom, join us as we take a bite out of the new Salem's Lot, next on the Fandom Outpost.
Hey fandom, welcome to the Fandom Outpost. As always, I am 1/3 your host. My name is Mark.
I'm Jim.
And I'm Bob. Hi everybody. Welcome to the show.
So we have how could we not, right? How could we not do this episode? But we're here to discuss, slightly review, and for the most part, give you our honest opinions about what?
The new Salem's Lot on HBO Max.
Salem's Lot. So we're going to dive right in. We have all, if you've been listening to our show or watching us,
our trailer reaction,
yeah, like we've really how much kind of we were excited for this, and we had some trepidations, but we were open-minded and things like that. And I can't wait. And we've kept it quiet between the three of us. I mean, maybe you guys watched it together, though, right?
Right. Yeah, we've had time to digest it together. So,
okay, all right. Yeah, I haven't yet. I've digested a little bit with my daughter. So, what's first reactions? How you guys want to roll on this? What's up?
Well, we were all very nervous, right?
Right. It's a remake of a Stephen King. It's an adaptation. It's a remake of the adaptation of the early Salem's Lot movies, miniseries, right?
Yeah, we're a miniseries. This is the first motion picture, as you were. So that's how they're treated it.
I think if I'm going to have any fault in it, it's going to come from that it's a movie and not a series. That's the only thing I think leads to the criticism of it, because it had all the ingredients, it had all the setup, it had the actors I enjoyed, the characters I enjoyed. It's just, I think it got compressed. So we can kind of talk about that a bit and when we talk about pacing and all, but I guess we should just give our first initial reactions. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. There was some few jump scares got me, and we're going to talk spoilers because we got to talk about
you have
and all to talk about this. So if you haven't seen it, see it first and come back and check us out. But yeah, we'll give our reactions,
especially if you don't know the story. I mean, if you've lived under a rock or you just have never, would we like to say it's never been in your wheelhouse? You know what I mean? So.
I had never read the book, so I bought the book about a month ago or so. And I'm trying to read as fast as I can, and I'm not a fast reader. You know, I only get so much time at night to read. And I'm up to about page 400 out of about 650, man. That thing's a big book. It's about 650 pages or so, and I'm about 400 in. And this movie I was wondering where they're going to jump in at, and it kind of jumps in sort of before the middle of the book. So we could talk about that too, structure-wise, but I had a lot going for it. I enjoyed it. I can see where people's criticisms are coming from, but we can talk about that in kind of a later part when we talk about structure and all. But Jim, what about you? What was your first feeling?
I thought it had more pluses than minuses in it. Like you did say, it is compressed. I've heard someone liken it to a Reader's Digest version of the book. Like you, I think it needed about another hour and a half to breathe. We didn't really get any time to get close to any of these characters at all. You know, we barely know them. You know,
and they're good characters. It's like, right?
Right, they're good characters. The actors were good. A triple plus on the setting and the season and getting the whole this is autumn on the East Coast vibe in the 70s. Like, they nailed that. Hit that right out of the park. There were some things, and I, like you, I haven't read it. You're reading it, so I don't remember reading it. But there's some stuff missing from at least the adaptation that I watched as a kid. It's hard not to compare it to that, but I'm trying to be very open about that. So I liked it more than I disliked it. Well, I'm sure we'll dig into those reasons. So, Mark, what was your... We were watching going, oh, Mark's going to like this. Mark might not like this. Mark's not going to like this. It's all very, you know, there's an altar at Mark's house, so, to Salem's Lot.
This one hits deep into Mark's horror lore, I guess, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. So this is my opening statement. So, and by all means, this is not a negative statement. So if people hear it, don't interpret this as a negative statement. It's not my Salem's Lot, but it's an awesome Salem's Lot. That's how I can put it. And I think it suffers from what you two gentlemen just said. It suffers from our expectation of wanting to know every nook and cranny about the town and the people. That has got to be the biggest overall, I guess, I don't want to use the word disappointment, because I was not disappointed. It was really tough to sit through, because it's what, an hour, 54 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
And even at 2 hours, you're like, wow, where'd everybody go?
Right.
So
You didn't see much more than the main cast. The rest of the town wasn't fleshed out at all. So when they start disappearing, you don't even notice it because you never saw them to begin with.
yeah, and you don't get them disappearing. Like, you don't
No.
spend scenes on all these people that I'm tired. I didn't sleep much last night. I dreamed about somebody in the past. Like, all these things that are in the book and the mini series,
Yeah.
you don't get. So
That's all the seasoning that you're missing. The stew is missing.
yeah, and I'm not sure. I don't. We're diving in here. I don't know anything about the miniseries. I mean, or the miniseries, the movie on Max, is that it's been like 2 years coming. You know what I mean? Like, it's a tumultuous ride to get to where it came. That I think if it wasn't for Stephen King posting stuff on X and all stuff like that, that it might not even made it. Yeah, I mean, we remember all the Batgirl stuff. They canceled the Batgirl movie as a tax write-off, things like that. All that kind of talk was surrounding this movie as well. So kudos to whoever got through to somebody that stepped up and was like, I'll release it, or we'll release it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
you could tell by the actor who played Danny Glick, the boy, that he's the actor, the young kid, and he's in the Boys series on Prime, and he's like, it looks like an adolescent now. He's like 14 or
like
whatever,
14,
15.
right?
And in
Right.
this, he looks like he's still about 10 or 11 or whatever. He still looks pretty young, and it's like, man, this thing must have been shot a little while ago, because he's looking pretty young. Because kids age quick, you know what I mean?
It felt a little bit like it had been played with. The movie felt like, where there were holes, you were thinking, oh, what did they cut? Or what did they reshoot? Or what did they, it felt a little bit like somebody fiddled with it a little bit.
Yeah. Like, is there I hate to say this, like, is there a 4-hour director's cut somewhere laying on the floor?
Sure.
Where you're like, what happened? And the guys that produced it, what are they? The Conjuring,
Doberman is the director.
all those, whoever, whatever house that they come from. There is, don't get us wrong, folks. Like, there's love behind it. There's a lot of love in this.
A lot of tension.
Yeah. There's a lot of love into those scenes, folks. If you're ever a fan of the mini series, like we are, the scenes that ultimately would be compared to, the sentence would always be like, did it surpass? Was it the same? Et cetera, et cetera. And I think everything they tried to do, they did successfully. I really do. So it's got nothing to do with what the story is, what it's about, the effects. God, that's a stupid one, but it's nothing about that. It's all about the filmmaking, right? Like, that's what we're all like, it's the filmmaking. There's no time to enjoy. Would you say, Bob, 600 pages?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It picks up where they bring the Barlow's coffin to the house, the Marston house. And that's a little ways in, because you learn all about Ben and Ben Mears, and you know why he's going back to Salem's Lot, because of the trauma he had with the Marston house. And
right.
And I know, Jim, you mentioned it, how David Soul's character in that, the Ben character, was like really freaked out by the Marston house. And this time around, he didn't seem as
No, it didn't seem like it
freaked out
bothered him.
about
It's
it.
like, oh, is that the Marston house? Yeah. We didn't get any backstory of his connection to the Marston house.
And that would have been a nice little touch. But again, I don't think
Right.
they had time to do that, unfortunately.
We didn't even get it. You have to be you got to do two things, folks. You got to pay attention to the credits at the beginning. It's
Yep.
unfortunate.
Oh my God, yeah.
A lot of movies don't do that, but you got to, they take you through this blood-stained little tapestry of a map and information.
It's like a Game of Thrones beginning, I thought.
Yeah,
Stephen
but
King's
you got to
Game of
pay
Thrones,
attention
yeah.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's laying out a
so
lot.
that you
yes.
can get that. Yeah. And then there's a second part to that.
That it reminded me of.
That's funny that Bob said that. I couldn't think of the theme song and stuff. So, but then you get there's a scene with Ben. He's looking at I'm a microfiche.
Microfiche.
And I don't even know if anybody's going to know what that is. But he's looking at that in a library, and it's clearly got his parents' death and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Which kudos to them for bringing that up, I guess. That was not part of any original Ben Mears mythology in the miniseries. You know, he just was like, I'm a writer, I'm back, Marston House. You know, you didn't get a whole lot of Ben Mears background even in the other miniseries. But the miniseries, folks, is Jesus, it's 4+ hours long, and you get to deal with every character in Salem's Lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. It is a strength for the miniseries. It's also a weakness because you're like, oh my God, what a slow burn. It takes an hour to get to the first vampire thing. You know, the cutting up of this movie, the editing doesn't necessarily fit in line with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's stuff that I thought, oh, they would have done that already, and then now it's at the end of the movie, which is really bizarre to me.
I know we're picking on a lot of the bones here, but I think we all seem to have enjoyed it. It's just now we're critical because we wanted it to be a little better, is what I think is what we're getting at. And the story kind of, it was a nice beginning. You know, Barlow's entered, Straker's taken over, opens the shop. We start seeing, the characters. There was a good scene with Ralphie getting abducted in the woods. That silhouette thing was really cool. It kind of comes out of nowhere.
That was
a great
good.
silhouette.
That's probably the money shot worth the movie, man. That was
that was a beautiful shot.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. Yeah, like you said, I'm glad you brought that up.
It's all in silhouette. It was just so
and composed
because the way the camera was turning, it felt 3D-ish. You know,
right?
It was doing that start here,
making the woods very disorienting. Yeah,
it's good times.
He comes out of nowhere and snatches at the kid, and it's like, oh my God, he's right there.
And a great framing device. Looking through that hole in the bag was a great framing device.
Our first intro to Barlow. Yeah.
Well, I was ready for him to pop up in the thing, you know what I mean? Like in that little hole.
I know.
I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they saved him a little bit more.
Right there.
Yeah. So I was like, all right. And good. And kudos to these guys for not shying away from a kid. You know what I mean?
That was a little like, ooh.
Like it was bones crunching and slushy
blood,
sounds.
And blood splatter on Straker, yeah.
I think the chaosness of Straker is going to get complained about in the long run. You know, like he's a religious zealot. You know what I mean? That's the impression that he gave off. Once he was in the house and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
You know, you must do this. He was really preacher-esque over the top.
Yeah,
but I still found him
catch that.
menacing. Yeah, well, I mean, it's like the master must have a sacrifice before he can visit your town. And, it's like, okay, here he is, master. And it was like, really he wasn't as reserved as, say,
James Mason.
James Mason. And then who played Straker in the 77 or 78 miniseries. And it was Donald Sutherland who played Straker in the 2005 series, which he was all right, too, but he was basically Donald Sutherland. He gets to be kooky and creepy whenever he wants.
That was the only character I wished was a little older and had a little more gravitas to him, I thought, maybe.
Right.
He was a little younger.
He had a little more to do because he disappears at about...
I know.
He's in it for the first
3/4 of the way through.
Well, well, now that we're talking pacing, yeah, I mentioned we get to know these characters, and then the Glick kids are killed, and the way Danny longing for I'm thirsty, and he's like reaching for the blood and the hot. That was an interesting
That was
scene.
cool. Yep, that was
And
good.
then we meet
Yeah, Mike
Yeah.
Ryerson.
Yes.
Mike.
Mike Ryerson. Sorry, I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
out
I'm thinking
who we're
Mark.
talking
Yeah,
about.
Mike.
Who looked
They
like
have a-
that kid from Unbreakable.
It is.
Is it? Okay, that's
gotta
what I
be.
thought it was.
'Cause I'm like, oh my god, kid's like
Yeah,
10,
I'm like,
12
wow.
years older.
Well, when he falls asleep and then he has got to dig up Danny, you know what I mean? You kind of, once the pacing does start, like I was pausing because I was checking timing, and it's about an hour into it when it really suddenly it shifts.
Right.
You know, like you get sporadic moments for the first hour. Oh, this happens, and you get some scary moments, stuff like that. But after that first hour, that's when it's like, okay, all the other characters, don't worry about them. We're just going to concentrate on these four. Here's what we're going to do. And folks, if you're really hoping for the structure of the book, it's way off. Like they've like, we're just going to get main characters together and we're all going to do all this kind of good stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, that's where it compresses, and I think the problem falls is we meet Matt, and I thought Matt was a great character, and I really was hoping he'd make it through. Yeah, he's the one that kind of propels the story because he's the first to kind of believe.
Puts it all together, right?
Yes, Matt Burke is the favorite of the characters. The only downside I would say is they let him and Mark Petrie do the same thing, and
Right.
it took away from the movie. It
But
should not have done that.
Guys.
That's what I'm saying. As soon as he says Mike Ryerson, he could be a creature of the night. That's like
Right.
From then on, it was like
Right.
we're just going to get to the end of this movie. You know,
Right.
we're all in on the vampire thing except for the doctor.
Nobody questioned it.
We can maybe bring her in, and then it's like a full on like get to the end.
Yeah, Mr. Burke is the Van Helsing. He's the one that brings them together because
Right.
he's the one with the knowledge, and he tells
Right.
them, you know, like, say the word out loud. We're dealing with vampires. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's the one that reads Bram Stoker's Dracula in the hospital or something like that. That's the novel version where he's like, okay, here's what we're dealing with. And everybody's like, what? You psychopath? You know,
that book was on Mark's nightstand. So.
Yeah, so why they let Mark do his own thing instead of just saying, that's where I liked the Mark Petrie from the original series. You just knew. I mean, he had the monsters and the cool stuff around him, so you kind of figured he knew the lore. You didn't have to have an info dump of him writing all that crap down.
Right. Under
you know what I mean?
When he puts the flashlight under the sheet when he's sitting
like
there and he's writing all the
Go
names.
through all his comic books and
oh my god, and he spills out everything. Like
he connects all the dots. Like
exactly,
Stryker,
you know.
Barlow.
Stryker's this and Barlow that, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. That's the only thing. Again, we're all talking about this compression of the stories of what kind of hinders it, but I mean, it was
it is.
I mean, it was fun to watch.
For that, yeah. So the fun factor of watching to get to the end is like it's a sprint. You know what I mean? It's not that slow run or whatever. You know, it's a sprint now to get to that end and stuff. And there's a lot of subversion that I thought was going to happen, and they didn't. They pulled the plug out from under me. Like I thought, I'd resigned myself to being okay that it wouldn't be Ben and the boy, like all the other versions. It would have been the doctor and the boy. And obviously, there's a reason for that because you know, yeah. But also, you know, I know we talked about this off air, and you know, like in the 70s, it's like, okay, well, here's Ben Mears driving around with, you know, a little black kid. And you're like, okay, well, what are they doing? Like the book is like, it treats the protagonist, Ben Mears, and the little boy as a pseudo father and son, you know, and even King said most people thought they were, etc. as they fled, because throughout the book, I mean, they are still being chased. So I thought they would subvert that. And Elfrey Woodard, great actress who plays the doctor, I thought because she brought some interesting things to the lore, which I thought the rabies test thing was interesting.
We were talking about
what
that.
I mean?
What different things were brought? Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought maybe it would be her and the kid that would make it out. But no, they stuck to it. Biggest surprise of the movie, by the way.
The glowing crosses was a thing from the book that I didn't have a problem with it. I know some people
No,
great.
online had a problem,
They
but
look great.
I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like a flashlight. I could go down the hall with it.
Yeah, I read a novel years later called Vampires, which John Carpenter turned into a absolute horrible film. But those glowing crosses he got from Stephen King. They would have them on pieces of armor and stuff, and they would glow in the presence and stuff. And I always thought, what a great homage to Stephen King by doing that, in another novel. Because like, when do you ever see that? You don't. So, but go ahead, keep going.
Well, no, there's some also. We talked about Jim and I talked that afternoon about the filmmaking stuff was really cool. There was some really neat transitions that kind of went, of shapes and things, and went from one to another. That I thought was really fun.
Did the atmosphere work for you guys? Like the atmosphere of the movie?
Oh, yeah.
It worked for you guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the
The
craft
seesaw
filmmaking
in the mist.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What was refreshing is how many years have we been making vampire movies, and they brought some new stuff to the table, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought so.
absolutely.
Able to see that.
The biggest one being the crosses that Bob just mentioned. That's
Yeah,
that
was great.
I'm literally cataloging my head right now, and I'm like, I don't see that at all, ever. You know what I mean? So, and even Carpenter's Vampires didn't use it in the movie. It was just in the novel, the original source material. So I didn't even get that, like why he did away with it. Who knows?
Whenever I think of crosses, I think of Fright Night. Was it Fright Night? Where he's like, you have to believe or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
But it didn't
Oh, yeah.
glow. He just was
Right.
like,
But
all
it's
right,
the fact that he didn't believe, enough in
Right.
it. And
right.
that one, I'm sure it was in other older movies, but that one sticks out to me because of Roddy McDowell. And
The vampires look great. I thought their slightly glowing eyes, like embers, looked fantastic. Their makeup looked good. Mr. Barlow looked a little strained, like a strained vampire, a little bit.
Yeah. And before we get to him, there's a couple scenes where like he's closing the window. Matt Burke is closing the window and Mike Ryerson's behind him, and for a brief minute his eyes flash. So like that gives you goosebumps. You're like, oh my God, is he just gonna attack him right now? You know what I mean? Like you got that type of transition. My daughter pointed out the white eyes of being hypnotized.
Oh yeah,
Right.
when you're under the thrall.
That's all new.
Yes, that's all new.
Yeah,
That was great.
fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't
what a
catch
great
it
piece for that.
on Matt. When he's closing the window, you said his eyes start to just barely go white.
Yeah, a
and
little
then
bit.
He, then
yeah,
snaps out of it.
Well, the first guy in the beginning had that. The guy
when
that
they were
was,
delivering
yeah.
delivering the stuff. Yeah, because I guess Barlow or whatever and stuff. So yeah, so
That's right. Did you notice Christine as we were going through town?
no, I didn't.
When you watch it
I
again,
didn't
you'll
at
go, "Oh my God, how did I miss that?" It's like
Okay,
I think he's
right.
driving through town, and there's a shot out of the garage and it's the front end of Christine. You can see it sticking out, and it's he's working on it.
That's
a
So
red.
That's great.
it's the only red thing like in the frame. So, but they had great framing. They had we were looking at like when they were delivering Barlow. The red brake lights of the truck lit the whole.
Absolutely, yeah, I
catacombs
noticed
into
that too.
red.
That was a really good one. So
That looked great.
I think the atmosphere of the key scenes, because that's obviously what I was comparing things to. Like, oh, here comes the mortuary scene. Here comes this. All of that, and this is going to be a bold statement by me. I think in some actuality, it surpasses that original miniseries. The fumbleness of the mortuary scene with the doctor and
They couldn't get it all
Glick-
together.
the
Yeah,
good boys, mother waking up. It heightened the tension. The tongue depressor broke, all this other stuff. They didn't know what to do. It's not working. It's not working. Like that. That whole tension mounting on that scene surpasses the original, even though that was very like blood curdling inducing as well.
And thank God that they took off the filtered voice of the woman that was in the trailer. That we were like, God, I hope they take that off for the actual movie. and she just had the normal Danny, where are you,
Danny,
or whatever.
Answer me. I like that though, man.
Yeah, I
That
did
was
too.
really
I liked
good.
it without
it
the
was
filtered voice.
far more creepier having to see her through the shroud.
Yeah, and when she attacked through the shroud too,
Yeah.
teeth are trying to come
Yeah.
tear through it, and I'm like, oh my god. I do have a complaint though. I'm trying to jump around a little bit, but at the end when Ben is attacked by 3 of them, how the fuck
Yeah.
did that dude fight 3 of them off? Compared to it was tough fighting 1 off. You know
I
what I
thought
mean?
maybe
Come
that
on.
they were causing a commotion at who could get at them, and they were knocking each other out of the way.
Yeah,
That's
it's got to be some explanation like that.
Let's go with that.
What you got? Yeah, let's go with that.
Jim, you had a great thought about the mirrors, and we were talking about that. Like, what's going to be the payoff? They kept showing these mirrors, right?
Yeah, they had a ton
Right.
of mirror shots, and whether it be in the antiques place or the Marston house, or a great
Right.
one when Stryker was asking the boys if they wanted to lift in the car. You could kind of look out the
You
window.
saw
but
his
you could
face
see
in
him
the mirror.
in the
Yep.
mirror, right?
Yeah.
But I thought we
Super
were good.
creepy.
Right.
Super creepy.
And there was a couple other spots too, but I thought we were going to get more of a payoff. We did get a little payoff when Mark killed Danny. So
Yeah.
Right.
But I thought
because
it'd
he
be
was
more
looking
Barlow
because
payoff.
he was looking in a mirror, and he turned around and
Right.
Danny was there. So obviously you didn't see Danny because
And so that lore, that's an ancient one that holds up that they don't cast reflection, right?
right.
That's,
Right.
I mean, so they stuck to that lore because when Susan gets it, that was really a weird thing because like the camera's looking at her through the mirror and suddenly she goes all weird. And when it swings back to her, there's one of them on there, but it wasn't in the mirror shot. You know what I mean?
Oh, I missed
So-
that. I might have to check
Yeah,
that out
dude.
again.
So the way the camera is they're
Happened
like,
so fast.
yeah, everybody's all. So it's filmed through the mirror, so you're like, oh, okay.
Right, they
It's
were
just
all
kind
kinds
of
of things
normal.
in the mirrors, right?
Yeah, but all of a sudden she fucking looked like she did this weird body contortion, and then the camera swung away from the mirror, and the dude was on her. So the use of those mirrors, you're absolutely correct. That was really, really ingenious the way they did it. I like how Barlow's introduction was later on in the movie in the basement. I thought that was really good, and the
Yes.
fact that he attacked one of the characters, that was it was worth the payoff.
I think,
Anybody got complaints about Barlow? I know I do.
Let's bring
Well,
up Barlow.
before we get there, I think Bob's his exact words were when Barlow first appeared in the basement was, "Here I am, Mo."
My furniture, be careful! Here I am, Mo. Whoa!
Because he,
It's a nice Three Stooges reference.
But you know what? That startled me. The scene
Right.
actually startled me. Like, even though I knew it was coming, I was like, oh my God, And there was about 3 in there that I jumped.
The
You know what I
mat
mean?
by the jars, when they kept showing the jars and they're tracking along the jars, and all of a sudden, like, his head is right there, like Abby Normal.
I ain't got nobody, and nobody cares for me.
Okay. Dude, you got to stop doing that. You're going to ruin it for me. Oh, Abby
all.
somebody. Abby somebody. Abby Normal.
I ain't got nobody. Nobody cares for me. Right?
Oh my God, I'm done.
Well, back to Barlow.
Sorry.
He definitely had like a European look to him, right? I guess you'd say, kind of like
In his features,
an old Russian ghoul or something. I don't know. He had,
Yeah.
Slavic features.
yeah.
yeah.
Barlow's the only one that's CGI'd up the wazoo, and
That kind of hurts him a little bit. They had that whole thing with all the veins on his head when they're becoming engorged as he's sucking on the blood of someone.
yeah, I just can't understand why. Is it the studio that says, all right, this is how we're going to do this? Like, why can't a director, somebody who's really like, just put makeup on the dude? Let's just do it. Find me a Rick Baker or whoever, just do the guy in makeup. I don't know. Cause there's a lot of that supernatural movement and the distended jaw. I'm so sick of that in vampires,
I
by
hate
the way,
that,
where,
yeah.
yeah. And he had that, but his minions didn't. Like all the townsfolk did, and they were just regular, like the CGI for their eyes to glow. It's understandable, You can't, you can't get a glowing eye. Oh my God, contact lens. Thank you. You can't get that, so I get all that. I was trying to figure out halfway through. I'm like, are the teeth real? Are they CGIing the teeth? Like I couldn't. To me, if they fooled me enough that I couldn't figure it out, then it worked. That's okay. But Barlow's mouth is, a mouthful of razor sharp everything. So, I would have liked a little bit more of the teeth of like that, But his whole house. So my daughter said, if you guys have never seen this, they're basically 30 Days of Night creatures. That's what Barlow looked like. He looked like one of the ones out of 30 Days of Night.
What did we think about our final confrontation in the drive-in? Did we like it being why was Barlow there? That's why I was kind of wondering, like, why is he in the van there? Couldn't he just be in the house
because that's where all his minions were, right?
They were in the trunks of all the cars in the drive-in, I thought that was kind of neat.
That was a fun twist.
Nice. That's a fun twist, but
I thought they'd go back to the house, though.
I did the same thing. I sat there. I looked over at Gabrielle. I go, I guess we don't get the Marston House confrontation. Like
the Marston House is barely in this movie, except if you're looking at it from
that's
outside.
The focal point. Yeah, with mirrors. So like that's the whole
evil house.
Come on, we got to go. Yeah,
the driving force of the novel.
Yep. And last time we see that is when Five Irons, Straker upside the head. Which I guess he didn't have any special powers.
And then bludgeoned
him to death. Clocked, and that was it.
I mean, for me, it goes back to even like my Kolchak buddy here, where he had to go into the
go to the lair. That's the whole point.
The lair, right? And he's creeping through the house, and you don't know where he's at. And
I mean, the
vampire knows all the rooms and hallways, but he doesn't, and that's what makes it scary. And I thought that would be kind of the cool way to end it, but
got a little the tension in the miniseries of them going to stake Barlow, and then all the other guys kind of creeping up behind him from the cellar. And it's just like it's all ratcheting like anxiety off the roof, right? And that's nowhere in this.
And the light. Remember the light?
Yeah.
It kind of kept
swinging,
going.
Yeah.
And then every time the light went into the little cubby hole, you saw the other guys crawling towards
it.
Yeah, dude, that's kudos to Toby Hooper for that. That was all him for that. So, but I digress. I like the idea of the drive-in for all the minions. You got to hide somewhere. Got to do something. That's good.
And they kind of foreshadow it, earlier.
Yeah, and if you're going to have a confrontation with them, I guess I like the sun, although moving way too effing fast for
right. Well, that's
movie
just
purposes.
Movie trope.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I know it gets dark early, but
I like that. I mean, I do like that it's like, oh my gosh, And that brings up an age-old question that I've always had. I did it before I watched the movie. I talked to my daughter about it, where I was like, so if sunset is at 6:30, but there's still light in the sky, that means they can come out. You know what I mean? Like, how does that work? Because if the shadow is overcast, you know what I mean? Like the sun was going down, but that little lighted part, clearly they were telling us, oh, they can't be in that little lighted part. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
but they could be in that overcast shadow because it was not night. You know what I mean?
It's direct sunlight, I guess.
I don't know, dude. I guess we'll never know.
Not reflective.
And Mark turned on all the lights to the cars. Not sure what that did.
Well,
was that lighting a scene?
Allowed him to see.
See, I guess, yeah. So, and I gotta admit, folks, huge disappointment about the demise of Barlow. Huge disappointment. Yeah, that's not good. So, and as far as crazy goes, Susan's mother taking over the role of guardian, I was okay with that.
Yeah,
like she had a little more crazy than Straker did.
Up,
you know what I mean? Yeah. So I would actually be afraid of that lady.
Do they get the are they enthralled or whatever you call it? Are they hypnotized to be the caretaker?
Yeah. There's a little bit of that in them. You know what I mean? But it's portrayed so differently, especially in this movie, as each individual character. You know what I mean? because it's like the mother explains it the best. They took me to meet him, and then I met him, and now I'm in service to him. So, he just stood in front of her and zapped her,
Yeah,
and
right.
you'll do my
Gave-
bidding or
gave her
whatever.
the eye.
Yeah. I like that they were giving you Father Callahan's story. I was cool with that. I'm like, oh, all right, we're getting this. And he wakes up in jail and all that stuff. And then they're like, nah, we'll just kill him off.
I know.
So,
He was a bit of a wasted character.
yeah.
A bit.
Because
he
in the
kinda was
book,
there
folks, and for the lesser extent, the original miniseries, Barlow taints him because of his faith. So he makes the priest drink his blood, and he can't ever go back into his church. He tries to get in the church, so he can't do it. So, and for those super nerds listening to us, if there's anyone out there, that character actually goes on and stars in the Dark Tower series. They meet him so I don't know. There's Stephen King's universe. Father Callahan ends up meeting the characters from the Dark Tower. Matt Burke, best character of the series.
He
Ben
was the
Mears
best
wasted.
character in the.
You know,
Ben Mears
I enjoyed Matt the most. Yeah.
Yeah,
was.
my
I was waiting for him to be
you know-
a hero, and then he never became a hero.
I know.
He
was so
never
close.
does. Yeah, yeah. So
Like they could have
That's,
killed
so
him at the end
close.
of this, and I would have been okay if he would have bit it.
Well, I'm not sure if Bob knows because he's currently reading, or if my stuff is skewed. But some of the scenes are moved around. For this, there's stuff that's moved around, like you guys are talking about, like the carrying the coffin and stuff. Like I actually said out loud, "Oh, they never met with Mark's parents. What a waste!" And all of a sudden, 10 minutes left of the movie, we better go talk to your parents, Mark. And I was like, "Oh my god!" And for a movie that's got a lot of smart characters, Mark's parents are just wasted. Like,
Right.
shut up, Mark. Shut up, Mark.
Right.
Shut up, Mark. Oh, let me go to the door. 1975, let me go to the door, open it. We have a priest and my son who are bitching about vampires in my home at 9:00 at night. I'm just going to go open my door. Like, I was like, oh my God, are we getting into that territory?
Is Mark in this movie a little bit of a, what's the term, Mary Sue?
Yes. Yes,
Just
he is.
can do
Little too
no
much
wrong.
perfect.
He's a little too magical.
You're not afraid of anything, are you?
I can take out all the posts in the drive-in.
He's the mini Matt Burke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked I liked who he was in the story, but it just was like it got to be too much. I'm like, this kid has no worries about anything.
He's all the Stranger Kid things rolled into one.
Yes. So in the novel, though, he's the driving force because his parents are killed. So he's like, I'm going to go kill Barlow. He's not a one-man Punisher wrecking crew taking out 100 vampires. You know what I mean? Once he's on his own, he's singular purpose of trying to take out Barlow, and it gets him in trouble. It's all right, though. Everyone had their role to play. So
The sun is setting on this episode. Sorry to say,
Yes,
but
the sun is setting. I'm glad Susan, didn't become we had fears that she was going to flip with Ben and be like the heroine of the film, be the final girl.
right, Wonder Woman.
yeah.
Yeah, I did like her. I liked her too. I liked
I liked all the actors in it. I just wish they were fleshed out a little more. But saying that, I'll certainly watch this again. Right.
I will too.
It's a nice.
Yep.
It fits the season perfect, like you said.
The world exists with multiple versions of Salem's Lot, and that's a good thing. I was telling Bob the only thing that remakes do, they never make your original movie go away. The only thing they do is make it difficult to search things on eBay. Because now I got to weed through all the different things, all the different versions of it. So
I will say this, because I was all in. I admit, I watched it. I was enjoying it thoroughly. Had the popcorn going.
Yeah,
You know what I
right.
mean?
Me too. It was like
I
an
wasn't.
event.
Yeah, I was not bitching about it while it was actually on. I was really in that moment watching it. I didn't think too much about this one back here because I enjoyed what it was trying to do.
Right.
So that was good for me. But yeah, that's going to stick in my craw, that whole condensed thing. And with 2 hours, I mean, even 2 hours is not bad. Like folks, if you don't know, like the original, that Toby Hooper one was done over 2 nights. So, you got quite a long film. But the theatrical one they released over in Europe, they could then sit down to 2 hours and stumping. And if you watch just the theatrical one, it still works. Like they spend a lot of time on the buildup because there's not as much going crazy with the vampires, where I think they wanted to have this big end set piece, the drive-in, so they had to get to that. They had to get to these action set pieces, and it was crazy how he was just fighting off Susan and the kid was fighting off Barlow. I was like, what is happening? Like that's, to me, was like, that took me out a little bit. I was like, okay, dude, just like rip the car in half. You could punch through anything. Just rip it in half and grab the guy and pull him up through the hole. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Barlow as a supernatural being is Superman-esque powers. I mean, come on.
Right.
And it's giving you that, oh my God.
Right.
Yeah. Ben, help Ben. What do you mean help Ben? Ben's been fighting off that bitch for like an hour and a half. And she was tough to fight off, or he gave you that impression that these things weren't exactly the easiest to fight off. So I don't know. What's your crates, man? If we're wrapping it up, I gotta get
the Barlow crates. Came out of it thinking out of 5, somewhere in the 3.5, 3.5, somewhere in there. On a good night with the lights out, watching it during Halloween season, 3.5. Any other time of the year, 3.
Jim?
Oh, for me, yeah, it would be 3.5. So,
damn, I knew it.
I think I said that at the.
You know what?
Right at the outset.
I wanted to like it so bad.
We were thoroughly engaged with it, though, the entire time we watched it. So we were.
Yeah, it wasn't boring.
We totally enjoyed ourselves.
Right.
And how about you? So Mark's, that's the big one.
So it's funny because I knew it. I knew I was going to be different from you guys. I knew it. I got to go 4.
Yeah, that's
okay.
good.
I would even go higher because some scenes really packed a punch. So I'll go a quarter, 4 and a quarter.
Wow.
It just, I'm sitting there for an hour, 2 hours, and I'm like, am I loving this? Am I not loving this? I'm really loving this.
That's
go back to my
great.
original statement. It's not my Salem's Lot, but it'll have a place on the shelf. That's for damn sure. But I just thoroughly enjoyed it. It worked for me on a suspense level. Maybe not getting involved with the characters allowed me to wish for more. So I was, leaning forward, going like, oh, okay, all right, I didn't get that, but oh, okay, this is really picking up the suspense, right? I did. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got to give it that 4. I really, really liked it. So
I really think it would have worked a little better as some sort of series, some sort of streaming series. I think it would have.
Right. 3 or 4 episodes,
really
and you're out.
Yeah,
right.
Like 4 episodes, something like that. 4 45-minute episodes, something like that.
I guess what Bob is saying. So the template, if you haven't gone out and seen it, it's on Netflix. It's called Midnight Mass.
Yep, that's the one.
So if you're going to watch 8 episodes?
Something like that. Yeah, it's not too long.
Yeah, so if you're going to watch a streaming thing about this subject matter, that is a slow burn, but at the end it's going to gut punch you like, oh my God, Rocky's beating the shit out of me. Like
that's a good call.
That's how you do it, man. That's really how you do it.
That's the template. You're right for modern vampire storytelling.
All right, folks. Bob wants to wrap it up.
Join us next time on the Phantom Outpost. Check us out on social media. Our Instagram page is a pretty fun visit. If you get a chance, check us out on Instagram, the Phantom Outpost. Also, Facebook is a good opportunity to chat with us or see what's happening and what's coming up in pop culture and movies. And please like and subscribe to our channel. We would really appreciate that. Leave a thought in our comment section and like and subscribe, please. We would really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. So with that, I guess we'll call it a day. I'm Bob.
And Jim.
And I'm Mark.
We'll see you next time on the Phantom Outpost. Thanks, everybody.